Welcome to another Talk About by Jefferson County Library. This is Chapter 1 on how to be a better you with our presenter, Dan Crowley.
Last week, or last month actually, we talked about the introduction to the 9 sessions we're going to be doing, as well as the 6 stages of change. Today we're going to work with the first part of how to change, and that's understanding mind. And mind is elusive because there's no real research on mind. There's a lot of research on the brain and the frontal cortex, but on mind itself, there's very little research. And so my presentation is primarily pragmatic. And you can say that twice and see if you can do it. Okay? But it's primarily pragmatic because it's a way that over my years of experience, I've begun to see how people think, and how they think triggers those feelings that we all have, and how our feelings influence our behavior. And so we want to look at that by looking at my representation of what mind looks like. And so I use some research, in that the fact that we have a conscious and a subconscious and an unconscious. And I totally believe the conscious and subconscious is located in our frontal cortex, but our unconscious is located in a memory spot in the brain. Our unconscious consists of our memories. And sometimes our memories direct our subconscious, which comes up to our conscious. So we're going to look at all of that. Okay? So to understand the 3 components of thoughts, triggers, feelings, influence, behavior, welcome to chapter or session 1. So in this session, we're going to deal with mind and how it's organizationally cataloged. And to begin, I'm going to ask you to get a clean sheet of paper, because on this paper, I will ask you to construct mind as I see and describe it. So we're drawing a circle because, as you know, mind has not been formally mapped. And thus I view it as contained in a circle. And now we've drawn the circle, we're going to divide it into 2 parts, just like we did. Okay? And we'll identify the top part of the circle with the title conscious, and the upper part of the lower half of it as the subconscious. I can't read either. But we have the conscious and we have the subconscious. And I will walk in front of you and we'll turn to the side and not be real cool with how I'm presenting, but we'll get it done. So in the conscious part of our mind, we'll write in thoughts and recognitions of feelings, because this is where we think, which triggers our feelings, and we recognize them in our conscious mind. So a minute ago, I used the example of feeling a little bit embarrassed because I think I should know how to use a clicker. But obviously, I didn't. So my thought was the way that I always describe myself, you dummy, which was, oh, I'm embarrassed, but I'm going to go on. Okay? My action is to go on. So we're going to do that. And in the subconscious part of my mind, we're going to write in world order beliefs. And beside it, write self-image. Now, these are belief systems, and there are 3 of them in our subconscious. We all have them, okay? Our world order beliefs are our rules that we live by. They are our shoulds and our should nots. I should have known how to use the clicker. I did not. I shouldn't not know how to use the clicker. Oh my gosh, I made a mistake. When I make a mistake, my world order beliefs will say, oh, you're not good enough in relation to my self-image. When it says, oh, you're not good enough in relation to my self-image, in terms of the values I have about my worth, it will be negative. Okay? So I will have a negative worth based on my illiteracy with the clicker. And then we have our value beliefs, which correspond to our self-worth. And as I just explained, if I had done good enough and known at the very beginning how to use the clicker, I would have said to myself, wow, I did what I should. And I would have said, oh gosh, I am a good person. And I would have had positive self-worth instead of the negative self-worth. And the last belief is our value judgment beliefs. And our value judgment beliefs are connected to our self-esteem. Value judgment beliefs are based on our behavior. Remember we said we think, we feel, we act, okay? So self-esteem is about our behavior. And if we're looking at it, we introduced mind's eye last session, and mind's eye resides right in the middle of our beliefs, and mind's eye is mobile in our head. It has to be mobile because it's going to connect the thought to the action. It's going to measure the action, come back up to the shoulds and should nots, and then provide a value. Okay? So self-esteem, if we look at self-image, I'm either good enough or not good enough. I either have positive worth or negative worth, and I either do good enough or not do good enough. So there's two that are almost the same. Self-image, self-worth is good enough. Okay? But the image is about who I am as a person. The worth is about what I do as a person. There's a real distinction. And in our next presentation, we're going to look at how this fits with the 5 steps of a life transaction, specifically life situation. So for just a moment, I'm going to describe life situation. Life situation is what you and I are doing right now. Our life situation consists of me talking, you listening. We're both involved in the same situation. In our mind, we're both judging this situation. I'm judging it as the presenter. You're judging it as the presentee. Okay? So you're looking not at your worth, but mine. You're looking at my behavior, and you're judging it based on your self-esteem, which has 3 parts to it. And those parts are fair and unfair, good and bad, right and wrong. So if you're looking at me and seeing that I'm slurring my words or not clicking the clicker right or trembling in the voice, whatever, then you might say, oh my gosh, he's not very good. Okay? And you would be judging me based on our shared life situation of this presentation. And when you judge me as not very good, you would judge yourself as a better than me, because you would say, oh, I'm a good listener. I caught him in his mistakes. He's not a very good presenter, but it's okay. I came to the session. I'm going to stay with it. Okay. So this is how it all works. Mind's eye is going to look at our world order beliefs. Our world order beliefs are our shoulds and should nots. Our value beliefs are whether or not we do should, which is positive, whether or not we do should not, which is negative, and all of that is based on behavior that we measure. Okay? Any thoughts or questions? Nope. Okay. So we're going to define our belief categories, and then we're going to work on life situation and the 5 steps of a life transaction. But first, we all know that we think, because I've said this about 100 times already, and our thoughts are going to trigger our feelings, and our thoughts are based on what we believe we should or shouldn't do. So we gather the information in relation to the life situation to think from all of our belief sets, but primarily beginning with should and should not. Okay? So if I'm doing this presentation and I'm thinking I'm doing okay, then I'm gathering this information and going over to here to my self-image the way that I see myself. So I'm seeing myself as a positive presenter today. Depending on how you see me, that's up to you. Okay? I am not responsible for the way you think, or the way you feel, or the way you act. I ain't responsible for that. However, I am responsible to deal with my responses to the way that you think, feel, or act. So I'm assuming you're thinking, feeling, and act very good. Okay? You're thinking, oh, that guy's great, and I'm just loving it. Okay? So we decide, and so that's the way we see ourselves. Now, there's two defense mechanisms that we use all the time. The first one is introjection. Okay? And introjection is primarily what we learn from the world that surrounds us, that's given to us by our caretakers, usually our parents, by our extended family, our siblings, our church, our teachers, all of those folks. They give us information from the time we're born, probably till the time we pass. And we incorporate that, and from that incorporation, we build these belief sets. Okay? After these belief sets are built, we use them, we incorporate what we're seeing in life situation, and as we incorporate it, we're running it through the belief sets of what we've been taught is right, wrong, good, bad, fair, or unfair. As we run it through there, and we run it through looking at life situation, so as we run it through there, that's the way we define ourselves, others, and the world we live in. Okay? So if I'm doing this presentation, and you're throwing popcorn at the other people that are in here, I'm kind of thinking that you probably aren't fit for this wonderful seminar that I'm doing, that you really shouldn't be here, you're disruptive, and I might have to call you out on that. If I might think that you're not a good person, I might feel some sort of frustration and anger, but I'll present myself as a rule giver. And I will say, you should not do that, and if you continue, I'll ask you to leave. Okay? So I'll be very calm and very polite, but inside I might be seething. Okay? How can you do this to me? How can you interrupt my grand presentation? Okay? Because my world order belief was, you shouldn't throw popcorn at other people. Okay? Make sense? Okay, good, thanks. So our beliefs, the world order beliefs, are generally initiated by the absolute rules we live by. Our shoulds is our should nots, our musts, our have tos, our can'ts. Those all are absolute beliefs that we'll use for mind's eye to come up after looking at behavior and say, did that behavior match my world order beliefs? And of course it will. It'll match it either good, yeah, that's what you should do, or bad, no, that's what you shouldn't do. So we'll have these rules being the image of, or the foundation of our self-image. And if we do what we should do, we're good enough. If we don't, we're not. If you do what I think you should do, and there's the key. Every one of us has mind, and that mind consists of world order beliefs. We value those beliefs, and we project, and that is the second defense mechanism. Once we've incorporated with introjection, we will view other people's beliefs by projecting our thoughts of what they should be doing. This, you might know, provides a bunch of conflict in our lives. When I was a kid, I was told not to ride my bicycle beyond the city limits. The city limits were here in Madras. And at the time, the city limits ended at the Willow Creek Bridge on C Street. But the bike ride was out further at a cinder pit or a gravel pit. And in that gravel pit was a hill that you could ride up and go down. And it was a lot of fun. So my friend and I decided to ride the bike to the pit and go up and down the hill. And we did. And we got away with it. Nobody ever knew, except him and I. And always whenever I remember that memory, because remember, memory is in our unconscious, but whenever I bring it up, I have two thoughts. One is, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have disobeyed the rule. And I feel a little bit guilty. But the other part is, I had so much fun, and I feel joy. Okay? And that's another thing we have to look at, is that nothing is absolute. If we have a belief, it's going to be correct 80 to 90% of the time. But 20 or 10% of the time, it's going to be not correct, and we go against it. Okay? Another example was when I was 14, living on a farm. My job was to milk the cows. And one night I came home from school to milk the cows, but a calf had gotten in between the fence and broken its neck. And so I had to stop. I had to not milk the cows or feed the other cows while I got this calf out of the fence. And I thought I did a really good job because I got it out without injuring it any further. But when my folks came home, I was in trouble because I didn't do the milking or the feeding fast enough. And so there was some discipline, which I've always thought was unfair, but nonetheless it happened, and I've had to reconcile it. And that's something we'll talk about on down, is how to recognize things that are unfair to you. So my behavior in that instance was measured by others, and they measured it as wrong. And as that measurement happened, the result of that was punishment for me. Okay? And I'm certain sure, that you've had some situations just like that in your life. It would be unreal to think you didn't, okay? Because all of us go against rules that our caretakers give us, our providers give us. That includes our society. And, we get punished, even if we think we did okay. So they're generally initiated by the absolute rules we live by. This is our world order beliefs. And they're the foundation of our self-image. If we do what we should, we're good enough. If we don't, we're not. It really boils down to that simplicity. Okay? If I drive between here and Redmond when the speed limit is 55, but I've been given permission by 3 different levels of police officers to go within 10 miles, to go over 10 miles of that, up to 65, and I drive at 62 to 63 miles an hour, I'm going to pass the policeman by the side of the road, and he's going to let me go. I have faith in that statement, and that faith has been proven by my actions, because when I drive to Redmond, I do 63 or 64, and I don't get stopped. Okay? So I have no guilt when I'm going that speed. But there are some people who drive from here to Redmond at a much faster rate, sometimes so fast that they endanger other people on the road. There are also some people who go slower than 55, and they also endanger people on the road. When that happens to me, I judge that, I value judge that as, that's not right. They should either go faster or slower, and they should be concerned with not only their safety, but the safety of the other drivers on the road. But not everybody believes that. But when I judge it as not right, guess what I feel? Angry, okay? And guess what triggers roadside incidents? It's called rage, okay? It's when we judge someone else's behavior as so bad that we get rageful and we want to take action to punish them or show them that they're doing wrong. And we do that, but usually that gets us in trouble. Okay? So an example of that is when I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in San Antonio. And between San Antonio and San Marcos, there's a stretch of highway, which the speed limit at that time was 70 miles an hour. It was a freeway. and a captain was coming in his sports car with the top down, and evidently he did something that enraged someone, and there were two people in the car, and those two people chased him, forced him off the road. He stopped his car when he went off the road. They got out, they shot him, and they killed him. Okay? That's what I call a rageful situation. Okay? They judged his behavior as not right, and they made themselves the jury to convict and punish by shooting him, and he died. So they were never caught, as far as I know. Okay? There was nothing in the news, nothing that I got from the public information officer on the base that said they were caught and indicted. I don't know what that means, but that's one thing that happens that leaves people kind of astonished and wondering, what's this all about? Okay. So our value beliefs define the worth we give ourselves in relation to how we see ourselves, and if we see ourselves as good enough, we will have a positive self-worth. If, on the other hand, we see ourselves as not good enough, we will have a negative self-worth. So in a following chapter, we'll have a question for you to ponder, and that'll be next session. And you can think about it now. How do you see yourself, and what worth do you give yourself? Because we do it in every life situation we're in. We just don't know we do it, unless we give ourselves the negative value. And at that time, we'll know it because we'll feel the shame that goes with negative worth. Okay? Positive worth is joy and contentment. Negative worth is guilt and shame. Guilt and shame produces fear. If we have an abundance of guilt and shame, we'll live with anxiety, okay, and depression. So we want to work always to have a positive worth, and the way to do that is simple. We learn our rules. We learn what we should do, what we shouldn't do, and then when we act based on the information we've gathered from our life situation, we look at what should we do to get a positive result, a good, fair, and right result. And if we do that, and then we act, and we get the results we want of positivity, we're going to have good self-worth. If, on the other hand, we just act without thinking, and our thought and our pattern thought is, we're not good enough, we'll never be good enough, why should we even try? We'll just increase our guilt and our guilt and our shame, and our negative worth, and our angry and destructive behaviors, destructive to self, destructive to others. And our value judgment beliefs, that's what we use to measure our behavior. Of course, we've said this. But we also measure other people's behavior. In the instance of the two men who shot the captain. The instance of the parents who punished me for not milking and feeding fast enough. And the parents who should have punished me for me going outside the city limits to the gravel pit and riding up and down the hill really quick. It was fun. Okay? I had fun. Okay. So we judge their behavior against our behavior. We judge our behavior against our own sense of what our behavior should be, and we are judged by others in terms of their view of our behavior. It's a three-way prong. Okay? I judge me, I judge you. You judge you, and you judge me. It's a four-way. Okay? Make sense? Hope so. That's what's happening. And we use the values of good or bad, right or wrong, fair and unfair. If you think about it, if you actually stop and look at a situation in your life which produced a negative response, you'll find that you judged whatever the situation was as unfair, wrong, or bad. And that will trigger your anger, your hurt, and your fear. And the fear will be of a future incident in which you'll do bad, which will reinforce the belief of you are bad, and therefore that will continue to look at and judge bad. It's really complicated. Easy to talk about, hard to change. So, the judgments of the right, wrong, good, bad, fair, unfair are the judgments that give ourselves our self-esteem. And remember I said at the beginning, our self-esteem is about our behavior. Okay? So, if I get up here and do a dance in front of y'all, okay, while I'm giving this wonderful session, you might judge me as, what is he doing? A little confusion. Why would he be dancing? Oh, maybe he dances because he's in joy of doing this presentation for everybody so that they can see how they think, feel, and act. Understand that the way we think triggers the feelings because the feelings are triggered by our judgments of behavior, and our judgments of behavior will determine whether or not we have positive worth or positive or negative worth. And that is what we call ego integrity. And you can have positive ego integrity and you can have negative ego integrity. It depends upon the balance that you have between the positive and the negative. If all of my judgments, if 80% of my judgments are positive, then I'm going to have an 80% ego integrity that's positive. I want to value myself. I want to value my thoughts. I'm going to value my opinions. And I'm going to be free to share, even though you might oppose. Because you have the right to oppose based on your beliefs of what's right, wrong, good, bad, fair, and unfair. Okay, say that in a hurry. All right. So we measure them. We measure them against our world order beliefs. Then they produce our trigger our feelings. And we will know the behavior fits our value beliefs and our image beliefs. And we'll feel good about the behavior if we've judged it as good, right, and fair. Or if we've judged it as that and ourselves in relation to that worthy behavior, we will have positive value. And if we judge our other of the world behaviors as wrong, bad, and unfair, we will know that the behavior does not fit our value beliefs or our image beliefs. And we'll feel bad about the behavior, the worthlessness of the behavior, and ourselves in relation to the behavior. Does that make sense? In other words, if I do what I shouldn't, I'm going to feel bad. If you do what I think you shouldn't, I'm going to feel bad towards you. Okay? If you judge me as doing something that you don't think is right, you're going to feel bad towards me. It's the way we work. It's called projection and introjection. I project my values out on you, you project your values out on me, and the judgment of my behavior from you is based on right and wrong, good, bad, fair, and unfair. My judgment of you is based on the same thing. Okay? And if we're going to live, and that is a common thing that we do. If you look at society as a whole, and you might just take the case right now of President Trump's conviction in the court today, the sides that say it was all wrong and illegal and shouldn't have been, and the sides that say, hey, we're celebrating because we did what we thought was right and we got away with it. If you look at it, those sides are judging each other. They're judging the side that convicted Trump as bad, and they're judging Trump's behavior they're judging their behavior of conviction as good. But there'll be a continuing struggle over what the final decision will be. But that's what we do. We do that on an individual basis and a conjoint basis, and what conjointness includes our society and its rules and the behavior that goes with those rules, which is why we have wars. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but it's the truth. So, measuring ourselves, others, in the world's image and worth based on behavior is often where we consciously stop. We do not consider how measurement of behavior is governed by spirit. And spirit is that part of us, I believe, that lets us do the right thing or not do the wrong thing. Spirit is very important to us. Okay? And it's spirit that I believe that fills the depository of soul with those measurements that we do. And so that understanding will come in chapter 3 and 4, but in our next session we're going to move on to chapter 2, and we're going to go ahead and put all of this together with how it works in real life. Okay? So I would ask you to think in two ways. One, look at your shoulds and your should nots. How are they? How do they work for you? Any absolute you have in your world order beliefs is going to work for you either positively or negatively. If it works negatively, can you change it to positive? And the answer is yes. Okay. But the answer, that easy answer, yes, takes a lot of work, because you're going to have to add new thoughts. In my mind, we add new thoughts to the old thoughts that are greater than the old thoughts we believe. And to do that requires a conscious movement from thought to behavior back to worth. Okay? So that takes a lot of work, and there's 6 stages of change to do that with, and we have to do that if we want to change. And so that concludes today's session. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it has made some sense. And thank you for being here, and I appreciate you all very much. All right.